Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am in the daylight, so there is no fun lighting setup today. I actually was going to record this video yesterday after I watched this movie, yesterday, August 3rd, but I did not because I was tired. I had a really long day on Friday and I was tired. So I decided I'm going to record this video and another video today. Batch filming, yay! And I also have a video from last week that I worked on that I didn't post that I'm going to be working on to post this week. So we've got a lot of content coming up. But today we are back on our movie review beat. Yes, movie review beat today because I watched a movie that, I mean, you saw the title. We're better than this. We're better than this at this point. We've gotten to this point where we are better than this type of movies, but we'll get into it. I just wanted to do a movie review on this because it is a movie that came out this year. I'm trying to stick with my movie reviews, like the actual reviews, being for movies that came out this year, even though I did watch a fantastic movie last night that wasn't really a horror movie. It was more like a psychological thriller called Marrowbone. If you've never heard of it before, go watch it on Hulu. It did come out in 2017, but it's a really good movie, and it's actually quite sad. So if you, that's my recommendation to make up for this review not being very positive. But yes, so I watched this movie last night. I had heard, so the interesting thing about this movie is that I heard bad things when it came out, which I was not surprised about because when I watched the trailer, I was like, this definitely looks like a type of movie I would have watched when I was 14 and thought it was the scariest thing in the world. But then recently, since it's been added on streaming, I've been seeing a lot of really big horror accounts I follow saying that the movie was actually really good and they don't understand why people didn't like it. And I was like, let me give it a shot because I already had my trepidation on this movie. I'll explain why in a little bit, but I already had my trepidation with this movie and it basically was confirmed once I sat down and watched the movie. And like, yeah, seeing all these big horror accounts saying that the movie didn't deserve all the hate it got. It was actually a really good movie. It was really solid. They enjoyed it. It's probably one of the better ones of 2024. I was like, let me give it a shot because maybe it's not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. And I'm just going to say this. It's not for me. It's not for me. I didn't enjoy it, but we're going to talk about why today. And the movie we're going to talk about today is Tarot. And I just want to make it abundantly clear before we start, I do not have any ill will towards anybody that made this movie. I don't have any ill will towards the actors, and I don't have any ill will towards the people who wrote it and directed it. This is going to be a very negative review. It's going to be a complete 180 from the previous reviews I've ever done on this channel, but I want to make it abundantly clear that I'm coming from a place as somebody who's watched a lot of horror movies in my life, and there's a reason why I feel the way that I feel about this movie. So we're going to get into it in just a moment, but I am going to just do some quick housekeeping stuff. So like I said, I have another video that I'm working on today that I'm going to be filming and then getting that uploaded. That's going to be my Halloween Horror Nights tips and tricks because we are less than 30 days to HHN and I am excited. Super excited because I'm going opening night, like I said. Super excited. I am ready to go and enjoy the houses. Been thinking about it every single day since like the end of July, pretty much. And also my other video that I filmed this past week that I will hopefully be getting out within this week sometime. It is more of a general critique of the haunt community. So a little bit of different stuff this week, including a movie review. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm not sure if I'm going to get all 3 videos out this week. I'm probably going to get maybe 2 of them out, but I'm going to try to get as much out as I possibly can. And then we're going to get right into HHN season. I'm ready to go. But today we have to talk about a movie that I think did deserve the hate that it got, and I think is probably a very, very good example of why horror isn't taken as seriously as it should be, especially in this day and age when there are amazing films being made and you're still coming out with stuff like this. So, without further ado, let's get into this creepy critique. Alright, so today we are talking about the movie Tarot, and now this movie came out on May 3rd in theaters, but it was released on Netflix on August 1st. It was directed and I believe written by Anna Hallberg and Spencer Cohen, and the cast is mostly unknown, but you'll probably recognize a face in that cast if you really like Marvel movies, and especially Spider-Man movies. Jacob Batalon, who played Ned in the Spider-Man franchise, yeah, he is a main character in this movie as well. So he's the only one I recognize, except for the older lady who was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 version that played Sally, that took up the mantle of Sally. She was also in it, and she was also done dirty in this movie. Sorry, my cat is playing with a box all of a sudden. She's just been chilling here this entire time, and she just decided now is the right time to play with a box. All right, so the critical reception is they have a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb and an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think both of those are very generous in my personal opinion. The synopsis. So the synopsis says, friends unwittingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within a cursed deck of tarot cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate, racing against death to escape the future foretold in their readings. So this movie is kind of like a Final Destination, but with tarot cards, and interesting concept. I mean, we've seen witchcraft used in horror many, many times, which is our horror thing. So using tarot cards is very interesting. Like I said, it very much felt like a Final Destination movie where you're just watching all of their, like, fates come true. So as usual with these reviews, I always like to start with the good things. I always like to start with the things I liked about the movie versus the things I didn't. And unlike my last movie review that I did for Abigail, where I had a really difficult time finding things that I didn't like about that movie, in this case, I had a really difficult time finding things I did like about this movie. So I did find things though. So first of all, I have seen this as a general positive critique within the horror community. The movie is very well paced. We have gotten to a point in horror, in movies in general, but in horror, where a lot of movies take a while to get to the point. I watched Ghostbusters Frozen Empire the other day, and the only reason I didn't do a review on it is because I just didn't feel like it. just genuinely didn't feel like it. That was a movie that the pacing was awful in that movie. It took forever to get to the point. It felt like they were doing so much character and world building and not enough like building up the main villain so that we could see what, he's got going on. Hi, what's up? You really can't come over here. As you can see, I'm recording. You can't really see her, but my cat is sitting on my TV stand staring at me. She wants to come over here, but she really can't because there's not really room for her to walk. She's thinking about it. Oh no, she changed her mind. Okay, bye. I love you. Make good choices. It's really funny because my cat has been like chilling all day today, and she's just been like laying on the floor, laying on my bed. Before, when I was setting up, she was laying on that pillow behind me, and then as soon as I start recording, she's like, all right, time for me to start doing stuff. It's like having a child. Anyways, so yeah, like a lot of movies take a long time to kind of get to the point, and that was like, for me, that was the big thing with like Ghostbusters, for example. But in this case, like this movie kind of just, it immediately starts with the kids doing the tarot readings. In fact, before we even get to the title card, they're doing the tarot readings. It gets to the point right after the title card, you have the first victim, and then it just keeps building like the repertoire as time goes on. So I thought that was kind of nice because even though it was like, it was very evenly paced. It got to the point real quickly, made sure that it was, telling the story that it wanted to tell overall. So yeah, the pacing was really good in this movie. I think that that was like a helpful thing, was that it didn't drag on too long, but we'll get to other stuff in a minute with this film because I have more critiques. Um Now, I will say this. This is one thing I had seen when this movie came out and has continued to be a main factor for this. The design of the monsters, especially like the like all the monsters from the tarot, um, was really cool. Like, I loved the High Priestess. I thought she was like my favorite. She was so like awesome looking. Like the way she looked was super cool. They're very creepy looking and very like, gross. I think the most iconic one is the Jester. I'll put a picture of him up front. The Fool, I should say. He's the most iconic one because I was seeing a lot of him on the marketing material. But to me, the High Priestess, if I can find a picture of her, I'll put it on the screen as well. She was like the scariest one, and like this quote unquote scariest. Like, she was really cool, really well designed. Even the deck was cool. Like the tarot deck was really cool. So yeah, the monster design was cool. Um, I will say this is the last good thing I have about this movie. It is a good starter film for kids and teens who are interested in horror, but aren't quite on the level of watching things like Longlegs, for example. If they've never seen a horror movie, this is like a good place to start them because it's not too gory. There's not really a lot of graphic stuff in it. Like, stuff is alluded to, but there's no graphic sexual stuff. There's no graphic violence, really, to an extent. I mean, yes, you get some pretty bloody stuff, but not that much. The monsters are scary, but they're more fun scary, and it does have like that sleepover friend vibe that was like big in the 2000s. I don't usually let my cat out in the living room unless I'm physically out there because she's a little troublemaker and gets herself into stuff she's not supposed to be into. So I like to be out there, and right now she's mad because she wants to go out there because it's Sunday, and that's usually what we do. But I'm not going to do that right now. I know. We'll go out after I'm done recording. It's okay, baby. It is a really solid film for, like, kids that haven't seen anything. I think it's a good place to start. Like, I know if I had watched this movie when I was, like, 15 or 16, it probably would have scared the crap out of me. I probably would have been like, I'm never touching tarot cards ever in my life. But yeah, it's definitely like that kind of film that I'm like, okay, yeah, if you're a person who really loves horror and you have kids that are on the fence about horror, this is probably the thing I would show them. Not like, something more graphic, more intense. But again, I have more to talk about in the next section regarding that as well. So those are pretty much all the things I can say were the good things about the movie. Because I didn't really see a lot of good in this movie, personally. That's just me. But let's get into the things that I didn't like about this movie, because it's a little bit of I won't say it's a longer list, but it's a little bit more in depth than the things that I didn't like. So now I want to get on to the things that I didn't like about this movie, because I have a lot more to say about that than I really did about the things I did like about this movie. So first of all, it was just like beyond predictable to the point where I was almost 100% certain of the order everyone was going to die in, pretty much. It was like frustratingly predictable to the point where, like, for someone like me who's been watching horror movies for a really long time, like, I could not forgive it. Like, yes, again, there's nothing wrong with a little predictability. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of, like, I guess you could say a little bit of that predictable, like, thought process when you're watching a movie, but this was just too far for me. This was like, okay, this is like, I'm predicting how it's going to happen. I'm predicting, like, you're laying everything out so much so to a point where there's no shock value. It's just like, oh yeah, this person got this in his card, so he's going to die that way. Cool. Awesome. You just basically fed me exactly how it's going to happen. Which leads me kind of into my next point, because as much as I said that the pacing was good, it still felt like, because it was so predictable, it was incredibly boring to me. It felt like it dragged on for far too long. It just felt like it kept going, and I was tired of watching it. Like, I came this close to shutting it off at one point, and the only reason I didn't is because, as a movie reviewer, not that I went into the movie with the intention I was going to review it, but I was kind of like, maybe I'll do a review on this, maybe I won't. But because it just came out on streaming and everyone seems to be talking about how, oh, I don't know why people didn't like this so much, I figured, let me watch it and then I'll do a review. And now that I'm like, I've watched it and I'm going to do a review, I'm like, yeah, I'm not a very big fan of this, and I don't really get why people, like, love this so much. Like, I didn't get it. Like, when people are like, oh, it didn't deserve the hate it gets. Yes, it does, because in my opinion, we're kind of past this point with the way movies are done, horror movies are done, and this was so shallow and empty, and it just felt like we were just kind of breezing through the story, but not at a pace that was like, the pace was not at a pace. It was breezing through the story to a point where there was nothing that shocked me. And it just kind of kept feeling like, okay, I'm not the target audience for this. This is this audience that would be watching this is like 14, 15-year-olds. This is their first horror movie. They've seen nothing else. And it's crazy because, like, a lot of these kids are watching things like Longlegs, They're not watching freaking Tarot, And yeah, they might go and have a good time with it, but it just didn't feel like a movie for me. I felt like I was a little bit, in a way, I felt like I was a little bit too old for this movie, because I was like, I don't find enjoyment in this. This just feels like I'm watching something that was made in the 2000s that they're just trying to like, be creepy, and it's just not, it wasn't working for me. Like, it was just a very boring movie, and I just kept saying, like, at one point I actually vocally said to my friend I was watching the movie with, "Oh my god, I'm so bored. Like, this movie's so boring." And like, I feel like a jerk saying that, because it's like, yeah, I know a lot of love and a lot of hard work and dedication went into making this film, but at the same time I'm like, it could have been better. It just could have been a lot better. I don't know, like, what, super predictable to a point where someone like me can't sit down and watch the movie and just be like, "Oh yeah, that was fun." Like, it wasn't fun to me. It was just very, very boring. Um Now on to something that's a little bit more, and I'm going to try not to get too into this, but it's a little bit more frustrating for me. I'm somebody who uses tarot. I am. I'm somebody who uses tarot. I enjoy it. I do it for myself mostly. Occasionally, I'll do readings for friends. I'm somebody who believes in that stuff. If you don't, that's fine. That's totally cool. I think we're all entitled to our own belief system. That's fine. A problem I've had from the very beginning of the like, from the moment I first heard this movie was coming out, is the demonization of tarot. And I could tell this movie was trying its hardest not to do that. Like, it kept trying to say, well, no, 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 it's not all tarot. It's just this deck. It's not all tarot. It's just this deck. But I'm like, but the damage is already done. The damage is already done, as, because the people, you can argue and say that the people who are consuming a movie like this are not the same people who are going to be afraid of using tarot, but that's not the case. There are a lot of people when this movie was coming out that I saw that were like, "Oh, see, that's why I don't mess with tarot. See, that's why I don't mess with these girls that be out here doing tarot readings on TikTok." Not that I do that. I don't do that. Like I said, I just do it for myself and sometimes my friends. That's why I don't understand why all these people are buying tarot decks. This is why. This movie, this is a cautionary tale. You want to know why this bothers me? Because tarot is already demonized in society enough as it is. There's a lot of people who don't understand that it's just a tool. It's not like, yes, are there people who are clairvoyant who use tarot? Yes. But the cards themselves are a tool. They're it's like, a best way I can put it is, it's like, the getting a blow dryer for your hair in some ways. Um, there's energy running through the cards. There's energy running through the cards that you're using to read the cards, to read that energy. But the cards themselves are not evil. Like, a random person can't just pick up a deck of tarot cards and then, like, predict something, and then 5 minutes later someone will die. Like, they can't do that. It just doesn't work that way. And most of the time, most tarot readers, if they're good tarot readers, are not going to predict death. They're not going to predict death unless, like, there's some reason that they're seeing that in their cards. I don't want to get too much into it, because then it's going to turn into me preaching my spiritual beliefs and the way I utilize a thing that I know a lot of people just don't understand or don't believe in. And I don't want to ostracize anybody that's watching this video. But my thing is, just as somebody who does use tarot, I felt like the movie was incredibly disrespectful to tarot. And I felt like we live in a society that still doesn't understand this. This is a thing that they don't understand. So when you make a movie where this thing is the evil thing, like, I saw somebody, when this movie came out, tried to compare it to, like, well, why do you, like, I had a conversation with somebody, I should say, not saw somebody, but I had a conversation with somebody online where they asked me why this bothers me, but a movie like The Conjuring or The Pope's Exorcism doesn't bother me. And the difference is that those movies, like the exorcism, possession movies, those don't bother me because the evil's not the Bible. The evil's not the cross. The evil's not the holy water. The evil is the demon. And those are tools to fight. Even if those tools don't work, the tool, the positive, the hero of the story is the faith. And what the issue is here is that the tarot is the evil. The tarot is the evil. Whether it's just this deck or it's presenting the whole thing, the tarot is the evil. And I think the best thing to compare it to is the movie The Craft. Someone was detected at your front door. My groceries came. I think the best thing to compare it to is the movie The Craft, right? So I actually read an article recently about The Craft and how they worked on making that movie. If you've never seen the movie, it's about 4 teenage girls who start using the power of witchcraft and become a little coven, and chaos ensues. power trips happen, and in the end it's basically good magic versus evil magic. They did make a boy version of this like years later. I think it was called The Covenant, but it's pretty much that's what the craft is. And I remember reading that when I read the article recently, that the writers of this movie actually sat down with people who practice like witchcraft within religion, which is a thing that people do. People who are Wiccan, people who are pagan. Mostly they sat down with Wiccans and spoke with Wiccans so that they could be respectful to the religion and not demonize the practices that they were speaking about. Yes, and they even went as far as creating a deity that didn't exist so they weren't disrespectful to deities from other cultures. That is how you make a movie where there's horror with things that people use within their spiritual practices, because at the end of the day the magic wasn't the evil, the witchcraft wasn't the evil, it was who was using it. And they even showed you that by having somebody use it for the force of good. The fact that the tarot was the evil, and even though at the end of the movie it took reading the tarot to defeat the evil, but the fact that the tarot was the evil kind of to me is like, again, people don't understand how tarot works, they don't understand what it is. And even people who are horror fans don't understand what it is, whether they believe it or they don't, whether they're afraid of it or they're not. All you're doing is kind of feeding into this already like existing fear of tarot that exists. That exists. Yeah, that's redundant. That's out there. That's all you're doing is feeding into that already existing fear that people have in tarot. And that's kind of why I was like, I wanted to see if they did it respectfully, and I kind of feel like they wanted to. Like, they kept trying in certain parts of the movie to stress that they're not talking about all tarot. It's just this one deck. It's just this deck. Someone was detected at your front door. There's more groceries. It's just this deck. It's just this deck. That's what they wanted to like try to reiterate. But the fact of the matter is the message is lost. The movie's called Tarot. The promotional material does not specify that it's just this one deck. But yeah, it's treated like it's, that it's doing tarot. It's reading tarot. That is the issue. So for me, it just kind of frustrated me. Yes, were the readings like the way they were doing things accurate? Yes, they were. Was it like, stuff that they using when she was doing like the readings and using the cards, like was she saying stuff that was accurate to each card? Yes, absolutely she was. Even down to reading like the horoscopes. Also, I didn't like the fact that they kept calling it reading your horoscope, because yes, you can do horoscope readings obviously, but I didn't like the fact that they kept calling it reading your horoscope, because when I hear the terms reading your horoscope, I think about like when you're back in the day when you used to open magazines and flip through magazines to find your horoscope. That's what I think of. I don't think about pulling out a deck of tarot cards and reading my horoscope. Like, that's what I think of. It should have been doing a reading for your horoscope, not like reading my horoscope. I don't know. It was semantics at this point, but like that bothered me a lot. And the last thing I want to throw out there that I had an issue with this movie was that the ending was awful. I was actually wrong about the ending. That was the only thing I didn't predict. I did predict that there was going to be a sequel set up. There was not. Does that mean there's not going to be a sequel? At this point, probably not. If there is, it's probably going to be straight to streaming. But this was definitely like one of the ending of this movie. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody wants to watch it, but the ending of this movie was frustrating, and it just kind of felt like it just ended like in a lot of ways. And they even had like a quick like little end credits scene thing. It was dumb. I didn't like the ending of this film at all. Yeah, so those are the things I didn't really like about the movie, which is a good chunk of the movie. So yeah, I'm gonna go get my groceries, and then I'm gonna wrap up this video so that we can move on with our lives. Alright, so let's wrap this video up. It's probably gonna be one of the shorter reviews I've done. I know I'm gonna have to cut out a lot of stuff because I had to get up several times, obviously. Like I said, I had to get up and get my groceries, and then I also had to take care of my cat a couple times because she was running around like a heathen. So yeah. In conclusion, this movie is a huge step backwards for me when it comes to horror. As the title of my video does state, we have gotten to a point where we're so much better than this when it comes to horror. Like, it doesn't mean we can't make popcorn flicks or fun horror movies. I mean, I would consider Abigail like a fun horror movie. It's not really that deep and not really that intense. But I just feel like, nah, I don't know. I feel like that this movie was not it for me. It felt very 2000s or even early 2010s, where there was a lot of movies that were just coming out that just felt very shallow, and like we're trying to make something that's going to get people in the theaters and stuff like that. That's, and in this day and age, with how expensive it is to go to the theater and how a lot of people don't go unless it's like a sure thing that they're going to love the film that they're watching, I can understand why this movie didn't do well, because this movie wasn't primed to do well in this age. I think it's going to find its audience with streaming. It's definitely going to become a sleepover movie. I'm sure a lot of teenagers will find it and they'll get together and they'll scream and they'll laugh and they'll make jokes at it. But overall, they're not going to really it's not going to, it's going to be one of their favorite movies because it's something they can share with their friends. But it's not really a movie that I think deserves the praise that it's currently getting from a lot of people. I do agree that kids and teens do need movies that they can watch that are not too intense and not too scary. I said this a lot about Five Nights at Freddy's last year, that it was the perfect starter film for younger audiences that may want to watch horror stuff but aren't sure. But I will say this, and I'm sure some of you aren't going to like it, I liked Five Nights at Freddy's way more than I liked this movie. Five Nights at Freddy's, it had its flaws, but it was fun, it was enjoyable, and for somebody like me who loves the games, it kind of gave me enough of what I needed to, get through. I do wish we could have seen more animatronic action, but I know that they were on a tight budget. Maybe in the sequel that's going to be coming out, we will get more animatronic action. However, I definitely think there's a lot better movies than Tarot to watch for a kid starting out. Hell, I even think the Quiet Place movies are better than Tarot for kids to watch. I remember watching that with my niece when she was a little bit younger on DVD, because I needed to find something to watch with her that was kind of horror related but not too crazy. And yes, that one was even a better choice because it didn't scare her to her core where she was unable to function, and she was focused, and she watched it and she was that was interesting, and that was the end of it. That's even better than this movie to watch. So personally, I just think this is not the one. Again, it's going to be something that, yes, kids are going to find on Netflix. They'll watch it at sleepovers with their friends. They'll scream, they'll laugh, they'll have a good time, and I'm sure they'll enjoy it to an extent. It's just not one that if it were me as a parent, I would be running to put on for my kids, because I'm it's not that good. It's really not that good. It is. Someone is detected at your front door. People keep getting detected at my front door, and it's kind of annoying right now. It's very boring. It's poorly written, and it disrespects something that is already demonized in society enough as it is, and just really, like I said before, it's a very shallow vision of what horror can be. And in this day and age, when you have a movie like Longlegs that just came out a few weeks ago, or even movies like I think it's Cuckoo that's coming out in a week or so, movies like that are just a little bit more intense. And yes, those are movies that I think are for more adult audiences. In any case, I feel like it is disrespectful, in my opinion, for horror fans to be saying that this is a movie that deserves more praise. It's not. It's not. At least in my opinion, it's not a movie that deserves more praise. It's a movie that, again, I'm sure it'll find its audience. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of younger people that are going to love the crap out of this movie, and that's fine. That's wonderful. And I think that's good. If that audience does gravitate towards this and enjoy that film, then great. Good for them. I have nothing against that. However, as horror fans and as horror accounts, we need to be honest. It can be a good starter film, but it is not a good film. And that's all I'm going to say. We are better than this as a horror community. We are better than this. We do not praise movies that do the bare minimum. We just don't praise movies that do the bare minimum. It's great that it exists for the audience it exists for, and I'm sure it has and will continue to find its audience. But for someone like me, it gives me the vibe that The Bye Bye Man did. And I just rewatched The Bye Bye Man a couple days ago, so I know what I'm talking about. It gives me the vibes that The Bye Bye Man did. It's not for me, and I don't really think it should be for anybody who is a hardcore horror fan, personally. But I could be wrong. You guys could disagree with me. But for that, I am going to say I'm giving it a 1.5 out of 5. And the only reason I give it the 0.5 is because the monsters were really, really freaking cool. I will say that. The monster designs were really, really freaking cool, and I did enjoy those. So yeah, that is my review on the movie Tarot. Let me know what you guys thought of this film. If you've caught it on Netflix and you've watched it, if you enjoy it, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you think it's worth the watch? Do you think that I'm being a little bit too harsh on it? Let me know down in the comments. Or you can find me over on the most used app I use, which is Threads on _ creepy critiques. And we can duke it out there. No, I'm kidding. I don't duke anything out with anybody there. But we can talk about it there, as well as like why you guys might love this movie versus somebody like me who's not. I don't think I'll ever watch this one again. I don't think I will ever, I don't think you could pay me to watch this movie again, personally, and I feel like a jerk saying that because I don't like being negative about movies, really. I don't like to give too much energy to things I don't like, but because the horror community has, in my opinion, kind of been giving the pass on this movie, saying that it didn't deserve the hate that it got, I think that I needed to say something. Because normally, like I said, with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I mean, I didn't hate the movie, I did enjoy it, but I didn't make a review about it because I didn't have a lot of good things to say about it, like great things to say about it. So in this case, I would have let this pass by, but because so many of my horror account followers that I watch were just saying how great it was, I was kind of like, I don't know about all that. I need to speak my piece because I feel like there's a lot of people who are giving this movie way too much credit. It is, again, if you are young and you're watching this video and you find this movie and you end up liking it, that's great. I liked a lot of crappy movies when I was young too, and I'll defend them to the death. So maybe this is your, I don't know, what's a crappy movie that I really love? I'm trying to think because I always love it. Maybe this is your Ring. You know, I just got into an argument, or not an argument, but a discussion with somebody last week about how I think the American Ring is still better than the Japanese Ring, and they thought I was crazy for thinking that. Personally, I still think that. So maybe this is your Ring. Maybe this is your Ring. And if that's the case, great. I'm glad that you found the audience. But as a seasoned horror fan, I cannot in good faith say that this is a good movie. That's just me personally. I cannot in good faith say this is a good movie. But we're going to wrap it up. We're going to leave it there. I will see you guys in my next video. And thank you so much for joining me on another creepy critique.